Hello everyone, in today's video we are going to discuss an interesting clash happened between Anish Giri versus Hans Niemann, and we are going to discuss the very fourth game of the classical section. The first game of the classical section ended in a draw. The first game was won by Anish, the second game ended in a draw. The third game was won by Hans, and now we have the fourth game on our board. So Anish is playing with the white pieces and Hans is playing with the black pieces, and I don't want to waste any further time, so let's start. So Anish with the white pieces starts with 1d4. Knight to f6, c4, e6, knight to f3, d5, and we have g3, the Catalan opening. Bishop to b4 check, bishop d2, and bishop to e7. So this is a line that is nowadays becoming pretty trendy, because the idea here is to play bishop b4 check, provoking white to play bishop d2, and then simply fall back with bishop e7. Because like the advantage of this here is you are kind of forcing the white bishop to come on d2 rather than on d2. The dark square bishop generally belongs on the b2 square with the idea of b3 bishop b2. So bishop e7 now, bishop g2, short castle, knight to d7, and now we have queen to c2. Black can play c6 or knight bd7, so we have knight bd7, and now we have c6. So like I would say it is more like a setup for black in this position, in this particular opening. Like black gives a check, go back, put the knight to d7, c6, with the idea of b6, bishop b7, or even bishop a6. So c6, we have rook to d1 by Anish, b6, and now we have the move bishop to c3 by Anish. Generally, the move is to play bishop f4, putting the bishop at a open diagonal, and then develop the knight, and play just a random chess with knight e5, following basic principles of chess. But we have bishop c3, and Anish actually played this move instantly, so we can already realize that this move is already in its preparation. So knight to e4, Hans is centralizing his knight. Bishop to e1, because obviously white does not want to give up the bishop for the knight, because then black would be the one having the bishop pair. So bishop e1, bishop to b7, knight b d2, f5. And now we can already realize that black has successfully cemented the knight on e4 with the move of f5. So we have b4 by Anish. So what's the idea? Still, Anish is still in his preparation. He played the move b4 instantly. And what's the idea? The idea is pretty simple. He's trying to grab as much space as possible on the queen side. After b4, first of all, if you try to capture the knight, I can already capture the knight with the bishop defending the pawn. And if you try to capture the pawn with the bishop, it's not really working because of the move like knight into e4, a very strong move. If you capture the knight, I can already play bishop b4. And if you try to capture my knight, I can already play bishop into f8. If you try to capture my bishop, I can already fall back with bishop d6, and you will realize that white is already an exchange up. So it's not really working. And after takes here, if black tries to go for capturing the bishop, white is having this intermezzo with knight to d6, attacking the bishop. So black has to play bishop to b4, or else if you try to defend the bishop, I can already capture it, and you will realize white is a piece up. So bishop b4 takes, and now queen c8, and you will realize the knight is trapped. But white can play this takes. You have to take with the e pawn, or else I can already trade off the queen and move my knight. So you have to take with the e pawn, but now we have simply rook c1, giving up this knight. But now white is already a pawn up with a clear healthy position with no problems, and white is pretty happy. Okay, I don't think that white is a pawn up, but positionally speaking up, white is already winning because the d5 pawn is extremely weak. So this is why capturing the b4 pawn is already a big blunder. So definitely Niemann played the move bishop to f6, putting pressure on the pawn on d4. There could be some ideas with c5, using this particular dangerous diagonal. So a4 by Anish, a good move. Queen to e7, and now he played the move knight to b3, which turned out to be the mistake. Like he should have simply played the move a5, going with his ordinary plan of just keep expanding on the queen side. Yeah, because if black ever tries to get a break on the queen side with c5, because you can't really take with the d pawn because the rook is hanging, Still there is a6, kicking the bishop, and simply knight f1. And you will realize that capturing the b4 pawn is already a blunder because of takes, queen c6, attacking the rook. You have to play rook b8 and just knight e3. This pawn is hanging, and white is already completely winning. So that's why if I was simply good trying to play on the side where you are simply stronger. But he played the move knight to b3, which turned out to be the mistake because it simply allowed black to play the move takes and now simply c5. And what's happening? First of all, Hans opened up his problematic bishop, which is the bishop on b7. And second, you can't really capture with the d pawn because the rook is simply hanging on a1. So after c5, black is already somehow having a perfect position for now. So we have been to c5. First bishop d5, capturing the pawn on c5 directly would have also been fine, but first bishop d5, queen c2 takes. You can't take because the rook is hanging. You can't take with this knight because after simply takes, you're still losing the rook. So that's why we have this rook to b1 move now, but now simply c4. Using this strong pass pawn now. And black is already very comfortable. Knight d2, rook to c8, knight to f1, knight to d6, rook c1, knight b6. So Hans is trying to replace his pieces, regroup his pieces at their best squares. And now we have a5, again a mistake. A better move would have been bishop b4, not allowing black to regroup his pieces so easily. And putting some pressure, maybe the bishop can go to c5. And still black is slightly better, but this is the best option. a5 simply allowed black to have this bishop e4 and put this knight to d5, and you will realize every piece of black is perfectly placed and black is pretty happy, and black is undoubtedly the better one. So knight d2, c3, takes, knight, rook to a1. You can't really capture the pawn because everything is protected. So rook a1, rook b8, getting this open fight. Rook c1, rook queen to c7, getting the queen into the game, the final piece. Rook b2, c2, queen b8, rook b3, king f7. Excellent move, protecting the pawn and also getting his final piece into the game, I would say now. Bishop f1, rook b2, queen d3, rook to c7. Couple of moves were played. And now rook b1. And now here, Anish made a blunder with e4. The best try would have been queen d3, takes, queen b2, rook c1, and this position is still playable. Rather than Anish played e4. And here's my question. You can pause the video and try to find the best winning sequence for black in this position. Okay, so if you found the move first, fe4, takes, and now simply queen b2. You can already realize that white is kind of forced to capture the rook on b1. Because the rook is hanging. If you try to move the rook, I can already be a piece up and winning the game. And at the same time, I'm also attacking the rook twice, so you don't really have an option but to take. And I'll make a queen. Now, obviously, you have to capture the queen, but now the problem here is you simply lost the bishop. And this is exactly what happened in the game. And now black is a complete piece up. But, okay, Anish is having 15 minutes on his clock, whereas Niemann is having 6 minutes on his clock with 30-second increment. So bishop h3 attacking the pawn, rook e7 defending it, bishop takes, and capturing the knight. Queen to e2. Now many of the players would have instantly went for capturing the pawn, but guys, it's already a blunder because of rook b7. Many of the players are thinking takes, and black is winning. Definitely. But you missed this move, rook b7 check. You can't pull the bishop back because the queen is hanging. You can't pull the rook back because the rook is pinned. And eventually, you lose the rook and the game. So that's why Hans Niemann first played queen e2, rook e7, defending the king, even giving up the h7 pawn, queen f3. Now the threat is to capture the pawn and simply mate on f2. So queen c2 defending it, queen e5, queen to d5, attacking the a5 and the d4 pawn simultaneously, taking the pawn, queen here, and the position is already winning. So first, Hans' idea is to first safeguard the king, and then he'll go for the counter attack to the white king. So queen to b5, queen check, king g7, rook here, rook f7, rook h8. If you try to take queen into f7 is a good try by white, and maybe this position would be much harder for black to win. So we have queen to d7, rook to b8, queen to c6, f4, rook here, check, rook here, bishop g7. And you know what the funniest part here is? Like, because of the bishop on g7, it doesn't matter how hard white can try to give check from g8. It's not really going to work after king h6, as now there are going to be no more check now. So that's why Anish is not really giving checks. Rook to d8, queen to f3, and now you will realize rook e2 is a big move. So check was played, queen to d5, and now has played the move queen f2 check, which was a mistake. You can pause the video and try to finish off the game. It's black to play. Okay, so the best move, which I also thought during the game, was rook e2 check. A very nice, natural looking move. The point here is king h3, queen f1 check, and after king g4, here you need to find the accurate move, which is rook h2. And I'm pretty happy I was able to find it actually. Rook h2, there are two ideas. First of all, you are threatening to play queen e2 check. And second idea here is, at the same time, you are also threatening to play queen to h3 check, followed by queen g2 check. So these are the ideas. So white have to play check, maybe queen d5. Again, I can simply give a check, force you can't play king g5, it's a mate. So f4, you force white to push the pawn, provoke weaknesses, and now just queen c4 check, bishop f6 check, king f6, and then you can already realize you can even capture the pawn, and white is at the verge of getting checkmated, and black is completely winning. So this would have been the fastest way to win, but here, as we know, Hans was having around 2 minutes now. So he just decided to give a couple of checks. And eventually, Anish wanted to trade off the queens, which was, he was successfully be able to do it. And now, somehow the position is not looking so easy for black somehow now. Because black is already having only one pawn. And you must remember, theoretically speaking, rook, bishop, king versus rook, king is not really a win for black, but it's a draw. And now white is having two pawns on the king side. So is it winning or not? So a couple of moves were played. For now, black is better. But now somehow white is starting to get his pawns pushed. And you can already realize how far these pawns have been pushed. And this position is already equalish. White can play king f3. You can't capture because you lose the rook. You lose the bishop and the game. So you can give checks, but it's still an equal position. But Anish played rook to e4, which was blunder, because takes, and what he thought was black can't take because of king d5, and it's a completely winning position for white, which I would agree, because white is much faster. You move the bishop, I can just push the pawn, sorry about that, and we can already realize white is just too much faster. So this was what happened in Anish's mind, but he simply didn't calculate the move king to c5, which is such a beauty. What's the idea? So first of all, he's not going for the pawn, but he's blockading the king, the white king, from entering into from advancing, you can say. And luckily speaking up, the last square of the a pawn is a dark square, and black is having the dark square bishop. It's completely winning now. King here, but still you need to get the idea how to win this. King to e4, and you can say it's such a nice fortune for Hans. He's having the bishop, so Hans is having the ability to lose as many tempos as he wants, because the knights can't lose the tempos, but the bishop can. So king e4, bishop to here, king here, check here, bishop to b2. You see, you went back, you went here, so that black get this square of f6, because black has the ability to lose the tempo. Now he blockaded the king, goes back, gained some time on his clock, and then he found this idea of putting the bishop to f6, getting the king via here, and eventually getting the pawn here, and after king to g5 on the move number 117, Anish Giri decided to resign the game with the white pieces, and Hans won 2 games in a row in classical game against Anish Giri. A fantastic game played by Anish, as well as Niemann to beat Anish Giri with the black pieces. So yeah, so with this, we have this game. So you can say Hans Niemann beat Anish Giri against the Catalan. So already I would say the opening played by Hans was pretty interesting. You can also, if you guys want to know a good opening against Catalan, I would say this is a pretty good opening to play against it. You just need to realize the structure, like c6, b6, bishop b7, and it's much easy to play with the black pieces. And what you just need to do here is somehow get this c5 break, solve the problems of the problematic bishop, and now you are already having a good position. So yeah, this was the game. So guys, if you learned anything new from this video, from this game, make sure to like the video, share this video with everyone, and make sure to subscribe to our channel if you are new to our channel. I'm going to come up with these more interesting videos like this. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching OneShot Chess.